Welcome to Touchline Talk by Soccer Perspective. I'm your host of Touchline Talk, Brandon Faust. In this episode of Touchline Talk, we break down 3 different ways to set up when you are coaching at the 7v7 level. We'll analyze the structure, the strength, the weaknesses, maybe some ideal team attributes, and how they can potentially transition to 9v9 and 11v11 play formats successfully. So whether you coach youth teams or want to build your tactical IQ in your players, this episode gives you simple, practical ways to use different formations to teach the principles of plays that you want to start implementing from a young age and pull that thread all the way through the older ages. And today we're diving into 7v7 formations, one of the most important developmental stages for teaching spacing, transition, encouraging 1v1s, and positional play. We'll cover 3 different approaches. Each can work. We have the 3-2-1, the 2-3-1, and the 3-1-2. Each teaches something unique about how the game works, and let's get to it. So the first one we're going to look at is my personal favorite, is the 3-2-1. You've got 3 defenders, a center back, and then a right and a left back, a number 2 and a number 3. You've got 2 midfielders. I like to set up with like a number 6 and a more of like a number 8, and then 1 striker, 1 number 9. And so this key tactical identity is the number 2 and number 3 defend like traditional outside backs, outside defenders, but then attack. And this is really critical. They have to be able to get up and down the field, but they attack like modern wingers, like a number 7 and 11. A lot of that out wide play goes directly through them. So they do have to get up and down the field. It encourages them development both in the attacking premises of the game as well as defensive responsibility. And also, when the other team is in possession and you're out of possession, it creates a compact defensive shape as you have your number 4, your defender. You have your number 6 helping to get back as well. And then natural width in the attack. You get those multiple layers, right? You have a center back, you have the 2 wide players, you have that midfield corridor of a number 6 and 8 that gives you a couple different levels, and then the level of getting it up to a number 9. The style of play, it can be balanced, secure, and great for teaching defend first and then expand into the attack. Some pros of this formation is you can be very strong defensively when you have 3 players that are minded to defend. Outside backs learn real positional versatility that will be implemented in the 9v9 and 11v11 formats. Natural width in the attack without sacrificing stability, and clear build out patterns for younger players. You could play from your goalkeeper to your number 2. You can build out, if you need to support, invite pass to your number 4, or you can go from the number 2 to the number 6 or to the number 8 and get it up to your number 9. The cons, the negatives, is the outside backs are required it's a pretty demanding, a job for them. The stamina, the timing, the mentality to switch from attacking to defending and vice versa. The lone striker in certain matches could get isolated up top. And the midfield in certain formats could get outnumbered. But the ideal team attributes are outside backs, with pace, work rate, organized, people who want to play in their positions. A vocal center back helps. Midfielders who want to cover ground and are willing to defend and attack, and a striker who can hold up or combine. You definitely at this age, probably less hold up play, more combination play is ideal, as we want them to be brave on the ball, take their chances, take their 1v1s. And I think there's a very natural transition to the 9v9 format. In the 9v9 format, what'll happen is you would set up potentially still with those 3 at the back, right? A number 2, a number 3, and a number 4. So your outside backs in a center, in a center back. And then what you would do is then you'd have your 6 and 8 when you go to 9v9, and then you would add a 7 and 11, right? So you add those proper wingers, and your team is already used to some of that mentality and seeing who's capable of doing that, whose attributes, suit those kinds of positions, because you've watched number 2s and 3s attack like 7s and 11s in the 7v7 format. So I think there's a real natural transition to 9v9. And then when you move to 11v11, you're potential, you're adding, an additional center back, you're adding a number 10. And so really there is an infrastructure build that is important there. But I do like the 3-2-1 because I do think it allows those multiple layers. I think it educates players on what an outside defending player does, also what an outside attacking player does when they function like a 7 and 11 in the attack. You have the center back responsibility. You have a number 6, that defensive mid, covering, helping the number 4, helping in transition when the 2s and 3s are getting back. And then the build-up play through the 6 and the 8 as well. And then, of course, having your out and out number 9. So I love that formation. It does require, I think, teams who are a little more advanced, it helps them to understand some things. That it allows them to run into space a little bit more, helps with decision making. So really love that 3-2-1. The next is, which can be very, very effective, is the 2-3-1. It's balanced. It can be help encourage a possession focused approach, and it teaches triangle play as well. The structure would be 2 defenders that probably mirror like a number 4 and a number 5, 2 center backs, if you will. 3 midfielders, 1 that's central and 2 out wide, maybe more like traditional outside mids, and then 1 striker, 1 number 9. And it's great for teaching these triangles, transitions, spacing between the lines. I think the pros is that there's a strong, you have 2 out and out center backs, that are defending at all times, right? You've got them back there. You've got them in the central parts of the field to clean things up. With 3 midfielders, you have a strong midfield presence. You might outnumber your opponents, but as well as just those ideas of building through your midfield, looking for more passing opportunities. If you have 2 center backs, your central midfield player can play the 2 different options of invite balls to play back, to drop the ball back, but also get it wide to those outside mids. I think there's more simple passing options and lanes for young players than certain formations in this one. Great shape for building out yet again, and it's easy. It can be easy to bolt on other ideas into other formations as they get to the 9v9, 11v11 formats. The cons of this is unless they're very minded to help get back, those midfielders might think they're more attacking players than defending, and they think, well, we always have 2 players back. And so they can get outnumbered in transition play if their minds aren't ready to defend. Outside mids have to transition, similar to what we talked about in the 3-2-1. Those outside mids have to transition hard both ways, in attack and defense. And the lone striker, can get lonely if they're not being fed the ball properly. Ideal team attributes: a technical central midfielder helps to distribute the ball and to move the ball around. The wide midfielders with speed, finesse, or speed and fitness is a big deal. And then your defenders need to be good in those 1v1 situations where they might get isolated. And again, a striker who finds those pockets for link up play as well. I think in the transition to 9v9, you can add, say, like a midfield triangle of a 6, 8, and 10. You can slot in those wide midfielders, if you will, or convert them to wingers. It does introduce the idea of 2 center backs as well. And I think that's a really positive thing. And it could prep players well for that, say, a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. And so that's a look at the 2-3-1 formation. Now, moving into the third option, which is a 3-1-2. It's a little bit more direct in its attacking shape with a strong spine. So this is one where you'd start with those 3 defenders. You'd probably go with a number 4 center back, number 2 and 3, outside backs. 1 pivot, so more of like a holding mid. You could technically have them be box to box as well. And this is, and then two forwards, right? We see sometimes those are more of like wide forwards, or some that are tethered together like 2 functional number 9s. This is definitely more direct attack minding by having, 2 forwards who are always up. Great for teams needing, maybe more simple vertical play and structure in the spine. They've got good coverage, and they've got 2 players forward all the times. This formation encourages the opportunity to win second balls, playing a forward early, combining between the front two. And so the pros, two strikers for constant threat, at this age of coaching kids in 7v7, everyone's asking to play the number 9. It seems like everyone wants to score goals or be positioned by the goal. So it allows you, two opportunities to do that. Then it provides a strong defensive base with the 3 at the back and allowing that number 2 and number 3 to get forward in the wide play. And then the pivot or the box to box number 8 can help protect the back line and start attacks as well. And it's simple for young players to understand the zones, right? If you're if you're a center back, you're way back here. If you're one of the 2 number 9s, you're way up there. And so there's that idea, but I think also the challenges that become evident is that there's only one central midfielder. There's only one midfielder in general, and can lose the center of the park a little bit. The wide areas are less naturally covered. Cut. So some of the pros, there's 2 strikers for constant threat and can be, at this age, a lot of the 7v7 type players still all want to be a number 9 and be a goal scorer. So you got 2 options there. It gives you a strong defensive base with the 3 at the back, 3 sitting back and knowing that their primary role is to help provide coverage. The pivot, or whether you use a 6 or an 8, can help protect the back line and start the attacks, transition the attacks. And it can be simple for young players to understand those zones, especially having 3 players in the back, 2 up front, and just that one midfielder. It's kind of like I'm a attacking minded player, defending minded player. The cons, though, is with that only that one midfielder, you can lose the grip of the game in the center part of the pitch very easily. It demands a lot of that, whether you're choosing it to be a number 6 or number 8, that lone midfielder can get outrun and have to cover a lot of ground. The wide areas aren't always covered because you don't have those extra midfielders there. You've sacrificed a body up front, but you do get some, in the attack, you do get that opportunity to go out wide, build through your number 2 and number 3, and requires that central midfielder to be really disciplined to not just run all over the park. Ideal team attributes: strong, smart center back that wants to distribute the ball, say out wide or to the number 6. A pivot that can probably play a longer ball. If they're the only, midfielder, you're probably at times going to need them to be able to play a nice ball up to your number 9 into their feet, or a ball that they can run onto. And then 2 forwards who complement each other, a runner and a playmaker potentially. That could be a really positive thing, that when one of your number 9s gets the ball, they're not by themselves, or someone they can play off of. And then outside defenders who can step out wide and build the attack. In the transition to 9v9, that whatever that central midfielder is can pivot to a true number 6 and get exposure on that and covering a lot of ground and becoming a distributor playmaker, deep line playmaker. The 2 forwards could become, 2 number 9s, or slot, one drop off to being a number 10. And it could easily grow eventually into a 4-4-2, a 3-5-2, or 4-1-3-2. So for each of these, there's strengths, there's weaknesses. I think the biggest thing is to not get so, of course, probably for consistency's sake and for understanding, having the same formation at this age, you don't need to be changing formations or tactics in that sort of way, but making sure that you can establish and encourage and bring out the principles that you want to play with and play by, not just at this age group, but as you move to the 9v9, 11v11, making sure that you're creating an environment where players can understand, here are some of those key game actions, key moments, key responsibilities, regardless of these formations, whether you're playing with 2 outside backs or 2 wide midfielders or 2 number 9s, or one central midfielder or 2 central midfielders, that they can understand the roles of each of those positions and what you want them to do. How can you, if you want to be a possession-based team, what does that look like? If you want to play direct counter attacking football, what does that look like? and to start baking in those principles. But I do think it is important at this age to commit to a formation so it's not confusing, so you can build and teach more of the principles of play and give some suggestions of just very small suggestions of the patterns of play that you would like to see, and continuing to give players decision-making responsibility, allowing them freedom on the ball, and then beginning to teach them where they can be looking for those patterns of play. Here's when you're in a position like this as a number 4, what's a good cue that you can play the ball to your 2 or 3 or to your number 6? Or when you're a number 6, when is it appropriate to play the ball back to one of your number 4, or to play the ball wide, or to play the ball directly into your number 9? And what does that look like? And so I think just settling in, I think a lot of people can, overcook this a little bit. Settle in on what formation you're going to use that can best create the environment for the principles of play, the small ideas and patterns of play that you want to encourage your players to take. And then they can take those principles with them as they move into those 9v9 and 11v11 formats. And that's all we have for you on this episode of Touchline Talk in regards to 7v7 formations. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.